Good morning, children. Video 2 of, I think, 3, because it makes sense to split out Hive Mind something else. So, this is probably going to be fairly in-depth. I will try and keep it as short as possible. So this is going to be on Xanesh, okay, Inquisitor Xanesh. So, quick recap of what we're doing. We are going to go to Xanesh every Sunday for about 40 minutes before we move on to whatever else is there. And we're going to be doing that until we feel confident enough that we can get through all of the groups. Everybody's learned what they need to learn. And then we just spend some time facing the boss. Now, I said on Sunday, and I'm going to say it again, that this is a boss that is going to risk tilting people. And the last thing that we want is to have anybody tilt. It's not cool. It's a really frustrating boss because it has effectively a one-shot mechanic that boils down to whether one person does what they're supposed to do at the right time. That's kind of it. One mistake from one person and the fight is over and we have to start again. And it's really easy to start pointing the finger of blame. It's really easy to say, oh, it's person X's fault or it's person Y's fault, and get stroppy and start, like I say, pointing fingers and blaming people. And that's not okay. We're not a guild that really tolerates that. It's not alright. If you're getting really frustrated, then that's understandable. I mean, I'm going to get frustrated. Everyone is. But if you feel the need to vent, just put it in a whisper. Okay, just don't make it public. Don't scream and shout and rant and rave on Discord. Just send a message to an officer. You send it to me, you send it to Alan as HR, you can send it to Josh, you can send it to Amy. It really doesn't matter who you send it to, as long as it's an officer. Get it off your chest. Okay, don't let it kind of boil up and make you really angry. Just get it off your chest, but do so in private. Okay, this fight is going to really irritate people. And the last thing any of us want is for that irritation to boil over and create any kind of negative atmosphere. We don't want to see any kind of toxicity around this fight. Okay, so with that in mind, we've had the refresher. Let's take a little bit of a look at the log. So we had 7 pulls, I think. I've got one here that I've chosen. Yeah, 7 pulls. So I've chosen pull number 2. Okay, so things that I'm interested in really are going to come down to the replay function again. Funnily enough, it's my favourite. So here we are. I'm going to play it through at normal speed and just take a little bit of a look at what's happening. So remember, down here and here we've got our 2 markers, because the first route is going to be either from square down in the bottom left to cross in the bottom right, or from cross in the bottom right to square in the bottom left. Okay, it's going to be one or the other. So the boss spawns here. We're starting here. We're waiting for the boss to spawn Void Ritual, which he's just done. Click on her there. 3 people have gone in. Jakob, Josh, Ivan. Jakob's kicking first. He's got into position. Kicks the ball. We get our first Awakened Terror. And he's running away so that he can make his way over to this position up here in the top left to do the 3rd kick. Ivan was in position for his kick. I think really what we can learn from this fight so far is the speed at which Jakob needs to get from this point over here to this point over here. Okay, so let's take it back a little bit. No, let's run from the start again. So we'll run from the start. So let's go all the way back to the beginning and pause right there. So on pull, everybody's kind of loosely spread around here. Absolutely fine, nothing wrong with that. Jakob is starting on the boss. Okay, so I'm going to focus on Jakob here and we'll play it through. So there he is, he's positioning the boss. Now, first thing that kind of springs to my mind is actual positioning for the boss. We did address this in the evening, that's absolutely fine. So with the layout, for Route 1, the obelisks, we know where they're going to be. So really, we want Jakob to be positioning the boss about here so that there's plenty of room to avoid any of the obelisks. Because I think we've got one here, we've got a big one here, a little one here, another one here, I think. So positioning the boss somewhere around this little spot I think is the wise thing to do. So as we work through the fight, the positioning for the boss each time is going to be really, really important. So I'm going to just grab this picture here. So this is the first route that we know that's happening. So yeah, we had a start point here, which was on cross. So yeah, we've got a obelisk here, a small one here, a small one here, and a big one here. So we know that that's going to happen. So we know that this area here is clear. Okay, just here. So we want to make sure that on this this first one, we're doing our void ritual here. So we stack the boss in this position. Okay, going back to it. So that's around here. Okay, so given that we know that that's going to be the case, this positioning, and like I say, we did kind of address this as we went on, is probably a little bit too far kind of south. So we're going to move the boss up to here, do the void ritual in this position. Now, let's kind of play it through. So we've still got relatively decent kind of stacking for the melee, ranged are in decent places. Boss is casting void ritual, people are in position, boom, done. Now, I'm going to slow the fight, because we know once we've got a void ritual, something else is going to happen. Okay, so we're going down to half speed, people are moving. Oh, what's this? Okay, a couple of people have got a new icon on them. Let's go and hover over it. What is it? Oh, Soul Flay. That's going to happen at the same time. We know that there's going to be an overlap. So as soon as we've done a void ritual, we're going to have Soul Flays. And Soul Flays are a bit of a pain in the backside. So one of the things that we can do to minimize Soul Flays being a problem is think about our positioning. For ranged, a really good idea, if we know that we're starting on this side, I would say, in terms of the void ritual, not in terms of where the ball is going to be, what I would say a really good thing for range to do would be to actually start the fight here. So I'll actually have the raid, kind of the ranged players, I think, stacking in this position here. So if you're stacking over here, and then Soulflay comes out, it doesn't matter if we need to stay on this side, or if we need to move over to the square side, your Soulflays are going to be out of the way. So you're not going to take additional damage from Soulflay. Okay? With melee, it's a little bit harder. I would say melee being on this side is well worthwhile. So we can look at positioning the boss again a little bit close to this edge, but having melee here so that they can then move to the other side of the boss to continue DPS. If we're going to be staying in this position because the ball is going from here up, across and down, then obviously melee, we're then moving down and going to be attacking the ad that spawns here, which is going to happen momentarily. I'll keep it playing. So Jakob's going to do his kick. Should be about now. Hopefully, if we're lucky. Oh yeah, I'm playing at half speed. Yeah, that explains a lot. It's going to come up. There it is. Pausing. So we know that we're all going to be running down to this position. So if we've got ranged up who start off here, and leave their soul flays over here, they can move to this position. Melee around here, soul flays come out, they move around, and then we move down. So it's just looking at little bits of positioning to prevent soul flay damage from becoming an issue. Okay, so I'm going to carry on playing that at half speed. So Jakob's hit the ball, he starts moving, he's got to move through this little section, move around a few things. Now I think what's happened here is he's moved to the goal rather than moving up to the ball. It's alright, we're going to make these little mistakes as we learn the specific positions. So as Jakob has reached this point here, Ivan has interacted with the ball and started kicking it because we've got our second ad. Okay, so by the time Ivan has hit the ball, he then runs down, glorious and wonderful. Jakob's moving up. He needs to get into position. It all goes wrong because about now, there we go, Jakob misses the ball. That's what's going to happen. And this is what I mean about being a tilt fight as well. So we need to make sure we get into these positions as quickly as possible. So here's where Jakob needed to be. And when he could have been here, I think he was kind of around here. It's just a learning thing. That's all it is. It's just going to take a little bit of time to learn it. So the route he's going to want to take is directly through here and up. Okay, so you can leap from here to here and then just RP walk. To be honest, you've got enough time. Okay, there's enough time for you to get through. The hardest job, I would say, for this first route is going to be the second football player. In this case, it's going to be Ivan for Group 1. Because this slot is really narrow. It's really narrow. And it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of practice to get used to doing this. When we have the reverse position, which I shall open in this window, it's exactly the same. This second kick has got to get through this very narrow corridor. Okay, so this is going to be hard. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a look at the overall analysis for this fight. So let's start off with damage done. We got the boss down to 82%, which is pretty good. We've got, look at that DPS, it's beautiful. Loads of DPS. So on the pull, we have very little damage that's happening in terms of damage taken. Okay, basically there's no damage taken, like comparatively, for a significant period of time. Okay, let's take a look at the first, where are we? 25 seconds. Okay, let's take a look at the first 25 seconds. Right, so we've got some damage occurring on and off, right, as a total. But let's look at individuals. Okay, let's look at individuals. So we've got like 30k happening here. We've got 30k or nearly 40k happening here. Here on Amy. Now, what is it that is causing that issue? What is it that's that ability? What is it? What's doing the damage? Okay, so let's get rid of this and let's start going through. Anguish. Now let's see what Anguish is. Queen Ajara's suffering causes her to radiate void energy, inflicting 44,173 shadow damage to all players every 2 seconds. So that's the damage that's going out. Look at all the rest of it. Right? Eye of Corruption. That's standing in your eye. We know that. Grand Delusions. That's letting something hit you. We know that. That's individuals. Okay. Ritual Field. Right? What's that? Inflicts 125,157 shadow damage to players in the area every 1.5 seconds and reduces movement speed. Well, let's go back to this picture. That's being inside the obelisk. Now, sometimes that's going to be unavoidable. Like, it's going to be really hard to kind of get through, especially if we've got soul flays in bad places, right? And for the people that are doing the first and third kick, chances are you're going to be running through that to get into position really quickly. Okay, so we would expect to see some damage from Ritual Field, but I mean, look at the amount. You know, over the course of a minute, it was 625k. That's pretty low. I think we can worry about that. And then what else we got? Touch of Pain. Oh, that's doing sod all damage. We can forget entirely about that. I don't even know what it is. Don't really care. So Anguish is the big damage that we've kind of got to worry about. Now, let's take a little bit of a look at healing. So yeah, we've got some kind of like good consistent healing that's going out all the way through here, that's covering up the damage taken from Anguish. Where are we? From ability. From Anguish. Okay. But over that first 25 seconds, actually it's a really good opportunity for, let let me reset the zoom. Over that first 25 seconds, that's a really good opportunity for healers to be popping a unbridled fury potion. Okay, so when we start getting to a level of competence and confidence with this fight, healers should be, I would say, healers should be popping Unbridled Fury, with the exception of Ivan. Ivan might, I say might, actually benefit from using a different potion. Okay, but for the rest of the healers, let's go with an Unbridled Fury. Get the most damage that we can before you actually really have to start doing a lot more healing. Okay, so that's kind of thing number one. We have the opportunities to do some more damage, so we might as well. That also means that over the course of the first minute or so of the fight, once we also account for eating, because remember we weren't doing food, we weren't doing pre-pots. Actually, we can take that 82, 83% and we can knock another 5% off at that point. So we can get a lot of extra damage out on the boss and be let's call it just sub 80%, just through looking at food and pre-pots and making sure that healers are pre-potting as well and dotting out the boss and doing damage where they can. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is I just want to start showing you guys some of these overlaps, because the fight is kind of awkward because of how casts work. So, Soul Flay or Flayed Soul. Okay, this irritating thing here. Let's look at when that's cast. Here it is. Okay, so it's going to be the same point every time, just after 25 seconds. Okay, he's going to begin casting Soul Flay, and a bunch of people are going to get Soul Flayed, and boom, done. We're going to have these nasty, horrible things that are going to do damage. Now let's look at when that overlines with other things. So let's go by spell. So we've got Soul Flay here. Now, Terror Wave. Okay, what's that? That's the adds that we need to deal with. Okay, it says 5-second cast. It has actually been increased to a 5.5 second cast with a nerf this week. Okay, so we know that needs to be interrupted. Doesn't start until the first kick. So where are we? What's the first kick? We need Void Ritual. So when does the boss cast Void Ritual? Okay, here. So the boss starts casting Void Ritual. It's a 5-second cast. Here we go, starting at basically 20 seconds, finishes at 25 seconds. Okay, and then we start to see the need to interrupt coming along a little bit later. So we don't have a big overlap here, so I'm not really worried about what's happening here. Let's have a little bit of a look at Torment. When does Torment happen? Oh look, the first Torment isn't until 50 seconds into the fight, so we don't actually need to worry about that either. So we don't have a big overlap here. So let's have a look. Let's bring in Anguish. So she's going to start casting that right at the beginning of the fight, and we know she's going to cast it every few seconds. So I'm going to come back to Anguish momentarily. So we've started to get a view of what's happening with overlaps. Now this is the tank ability. Okay, Abyssal Strike. Oh, we don't have first one until 30 seconds into the fight. Well, that's good. I know that hits Ryan here, but we decided to wipe at this point, hence it being there. So we've got a potential little overlap between the tail end of Void Ritual, when we've got 7 seconds before we get Soul Flays starting to be an issue, and then we've got Abyssal Strike. So this is where we start to see some little overlaps, which is why our positioning starts becoming really important. Okay, positioning important. Now Abyssal Strike, I said I'd show that again, so let's go to damage done by ability Anguish. Let's throw that up there. Okay, so these spikes are when Anguish is doing its damage. So you can see that we've got Void Ritual happening here at about 20 seconds. And about that comes just after we have an Anguish, or just before the second Anguish. So we've got kind of a small overlap here. When Soulflay comes out, that's happening at 26, 27 seconds. Okay, that's in between, again, in between two Anguishes. And then when we have the Abyssal Strike, again, that's in between Anguishes. But you can see how close they are. Okay, that's going to make life a little interesting as we go through the fight. Okay, so we know we're going to have a little kind of spikes of high damage occurring all the way through the fight. It's constant, it never ends, and it's going to be kind of interspersed with some of the mechanics that we actually have to deal with. Okay, so you can see there's not a lot happening, but it happens in very specific sequences, and this whole fight is so heavily telegraphed. The only thing that is going to move or change at all is the casts that come from the ads when they're spawned. That's it, and that's only going to move based on time based on when exactly the ad spawns, which could be 1 second either side, and when we kick. So if you kick at 4 seconds, then you're going to move the next cast forward by 1.5 seconds compared to if you kick at 5 seconds and 0.49 of a second later. Okay, so you can see how the whole fight is super telegraphed, super scripted. So on the whole, I was really happy with what I saw. Good damage output. Positioning was starting to get there. Let's go back to the replay once it loads. So good positioning on the whole. So we can just look at how, again, just as a recap, how the ranged and ranged healers are positioning. So I would say start the fight over here in this position. We'll make sure that the boss is kind of here with melee on this bit, boss facing out in this direction. Okay, so we're going to have an orb soak here, here, and here. So we have melee around here. Then once the flays come out, melee can move, range can move. If we need to go to square, then we just make our way through this little bit over here. If we're staying on cross, then we just run down to here, start doing interrupts, and then move our way around. So really good work, everybody. We started to see how the fight works. It's just practice now. That's all it is. Just practice. Practice, 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 and some more practice. Okay, so thank you very much. Video 3 I shall have a look at now. So thanks. Bye.